Hi, it's the M.L.M for the Soul Channel. I do hope in the topic for today. Before I begin, I just would like to say, may the words and expressions of my mouth and the thoughts and meditations of my heart find favor and acceptance before you, Hashem, and the people I thank have inspired me. I hope they can inspire you as well. We will have links below this video to their sites. They are Rabbi Shalom Arish, Rabbi Lazer Brody, Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi, Rabbi Eli Mansour, Rabbi Alon Anavar, Rabbi Yuval Ovadia, Rabbi Daniel Asher, Nisim Baruch Black, David Sachs, Rabbi Michael Skobach, Jews for Judaism, Rabbi David Asher, and Rabbi Ron Ruvain. Excuse me. As well, if you've never checked out this channel before, I will have a link below this video to my first video, which explains what M.L.M for the soul means, what it stands for, and what I'm doing. So we are coming up very closely, or closer to the holiday of Shavuot, or Shavuos, however you pronounce it. So I thought it would be appropriate to talk about some things relating to that. So this is again taking from the weekly Parsha Insights by Rabbi Eli Mansour, and I call this Dependence on the Oral Torah. So it is customary on Shavuot to read Megillas Ruth, which tells the story of a Moabite woman, Ruth, who converted to Judaism and ultimately became the great-grandmother of David HaMelech. One famous explanation given for this custom is that, as tradition teaches, David died on Shavuos. It is therefore appropriate to read and study on this day the Megillah, which tells about his background and lineage. There may, however, be a deeper reason for this custom, one which touches upon one of the essential themes and messages of this holiday. We read in the Megillah that Ruth married a man named Boaz, who, as our rabbis teach, was the leading Torah scholar of his time. Boaz's marriage to Ruth was fraught with controversy. The Torah, in Devarim 23:4, explicitly writes that although people from the nation of Moab are allowed to convert to Judaism and are accepted as part of the Jewish people, they may not marry a Jew. Seemingly then, Boaz was forbidden from marrying Ruth, a convert from the nation of Moab. Boaz was convened a group of rabbis to discuss this question, and they concluded that Ruth was in fact permissible for marriage. An oral tradition teaches that the prohibition against marrying Moabite converts applied only to male converts. A Moabite woman who converted to Judaism, however, was allowed to marry a Jewish man, and Boaz was therefore allowed to marry Ruth. The sages further relate that this controversy arose again later. During David's lifetime, his adversaries discredited his lineage, claiming that as a product of this questionable union between Boaz and Ruth, David was unfit for marrying any girl from among Bnei Israel, let alone for assuming the Jewish throne. This controversy was brought to the yeshiva for a halachic ruling, and the scholars of the time were poised to issue an official ruling disqualifying David from marrying. Just then, a scholar named Amsa ben Yeter, which I never heard of before, but he was a scholar, arose and declared that he received an oral tradition from the prophet Shmuel that a female Moabite convert is permissible for marriage. Shmuel, Amsa reported, had received this tradition from his predecessors in an unbroken chain dating back to Moshe Rabbeinu. The story of Ruth thus conveys a vital lesson regarding Torah. If not for the Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is the oral Torah, our oral rabbinic tradition, our nation's eternal royal line is illegitimate. It is only the oral law that allows us to consider King David as a legitimate member of our nation. Without it, the kingship of David and Shlomo was invalid, and even the messianic king is unfit for rule. Megillat Ruth demonstrates that without the oral Torah, we have no written Torah. The written Torah is meaningless without the interpretive tradition we receive from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. This is a critical message for us to remember as we celebrate Shavuot. This holiday commemorates our receiving of two Torahs, the written and oral laws. It is not enough to study the Chumash or even to study the prophets. We must commit ourselves to the study of the oral law as well, the Mishnah, Gemara, and Halacha. Without these texts, we cannot properly understand the written Torah. With the written Torah alone, we would disqualify David for kingship. We need to know and understand our halachic tradition in order to properly understand and apply the words of the Torah. Now, this is true. I've heard this from other rabbis like Rabbi Mizrahi, that, we wouldn't know how to make tefillin, and where is the bris milah supposed to take place, what part of the body. So people that discredit the oral tradition don't realize that without it, we'd have nothing. And I think he also said, Rabbi Mizrahi, that if someone would say to you, you have only the choice between the written or the oral, meaning you can't have both. So we would take the oral because the oral gives all the explanations of why we do everything. So that's really what matters. Not that chas v'shalom the written Torah doesn't matter. It's just that if someone gave you like an ultimatum. So just wanted to share that. So this might also be the reason why the Torah does not assign a calendar date to the observance of Shavuot. Instead of establishing the observance of this holiday on the 6th of Sivan, the Torah states that we must observe this occasion after 7 weeks have passed, quote, after the Shabbat. That's from Vayikra 23:15. The heretical Sadducee sect, or Saddukis in Hebrew, who denied the oral law, so here's one of the groups that denied it, understood this to mean that Shavuot must be observed 7 weeks after the first Sunday after Pesach. Our oral tradition, however, teaches that the Shabbat, quote, in this verse refers to the first day of Pesach, and we therefore celebrate Shavuot on the 50th day from Pesach. It thus turns out that our very observance of Shavuot is dependent upon our oral tradition. This reinforces the notion that Shavuot celebrates our acceptance of both the written Torah and our halachic tradition. So the study of Chumash and Mussar is very valuable and certainly necessary for every Jew, but it is not enough. The essence of Judaism lies in the study of Gemara, the halachic tradition which interprets and analyzes the written text and shows us how to apply Jewish law. Shavuot is a time for all of us to recommit ourselves to the study of our oral tradition, a necessary prerequisite for the acceptance of Torah, which we celebrate on this special holiday. Now, women don't usually learn Mishnah and Gemara, but you can learn halacha, and there's places where you can get things where it's easier. You get, like, commentary, maybe online or something, or some people that are studying it, because women don't usually do that. It's a lot more difficult and very deep. So, anyway, I just thought I would share this. I thought it was very interesting, so now we understand why the oral tradition is very important to us and that we observe it. And I hope that we will all merit to live and see the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days and rebuilding of our final and everlasting Beit HaMikdash. Amen. And thanks for watching.